The title of the message is How the Warrior and the Wannabe Confronts Strife. I'm going to give you a little story to put this whole message in context. On July the 23rd of 2020, Richard Molesky, who's 58, pretended to be a U.S. Navy SEAL, and he claims that he had a Silver Star and that he was a prisoner of war, and all these great claims. He claims that he injured his knee by jumping out of a window with a dead Navy SEAL on his back, and all these fanciful claims. He did all of that in order to collect health care and benefits to the tune of $302,121.21. He got a lot out of it, and the free health care. And there's a legitimate place for that. If he had really done those things, he deserved it. But just the opposite if he's a liar. According to the DOJ, he faces up to 68 years in prison. Think about it. He's 58 years old, and his jail sentence is going to be 68 years. Big difference. In prison, and a fine. Not that he'll ever be able to pay it, but his fine is $2.25 million plus restitution of the $302,000 that he's already spent. Wow. That's bad news. Now, this is called something. It's known as stolen valor. That's what it's called. Good name for it. Christians can do the same thing. Many a Christian is glad to claim the title of Christian. And you should be. I mean, that's what you've been given. However, if all you're doing is wanting the benefits and the blessings of being a Christian, that's stolen valor. You have to earn it. Now, you don't earn your salvation, but you earn your benefits. You do. A focus on just the blessings of God creates an inflated view of your own self-worth. Now, this is not a Joel Osteen message. The fact of the matter is, the definition of a lost man, if you think about it, is pride. That defines a lost man, because the devil is the king over all the children of pride.
That's right.
So, one of the main results of pride is strife. So we'll cover this subject today. Look at our passage in 1 Peter 4, verse 1. 1 Peter 4, verse 1. For as much then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. For he that has suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin. For the second you're suffering. You can go right back to sin right after you're done suffering. But it seems like, now that's true, in the moment that we're suffering, we're crying out to God. You know, sin is the last thing on our mind. There's a cleansing component to suffering. Keeps you straight. That's right. Get your thinking the right things. Now he said here, for as much then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh. What did he do when he suffered in the flesh?
He was tortured and killed.
That's right. He was wronged. They lied about him. He took it. He, as a lamb taken to the shears, he didn't open his mouth, say anything about it. He could have. He didn't. Now, our verse said, you get ready to do the same thing. Well, that's not a popular Christian message. He's saying, get ready to do just what Jesus did. Be wronged and take it. And not open your mouth. Wow. I don't want to hear this message. Back up a little bit. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 23. 1 1 Peter 2, verse 23. Here's how we arm ourselves to do just what Christ did. 1 Peter 2, 23. Who, when he was reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not. Here's what he did do. But committed himself to him that judgeth righteously. You know what we do is it's natural to become your own judge. When you're done wrong, you want to declare it. You were wrong. I'm the one that's right. Let me become the judge right now. Okay, he says no, what he did was he committed himself to God who judge. He's the judge. He'll judge righteousness, and he does. That's the way we'll be able to handle it, is not taking the judgment on ourselves, deciding that we are going to dictate right and wrong. Go ahead and take the wrong and let God handle the dictation of what is right and wrong in the end. He will. Go to one other passage and then we'll get to the message. Romans chapter 13. Romans 13, verse 12. Romans 13, 12. Paul's given the church here a real pep talk. I mean, he is, and you can see it. Romans 13, verse 12. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. That is, you're almost late. Get up and get to work. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor. There's that armor again, of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness. Okay, if you got a problem with that, stop there. Get that one fixed. Not in chambering and wantonness. Not in, there's our subject, strife and envying. So this is a big part of a Christian life. You got to watch out for strife. The devil doesn't play fair. We're fighting a spiritual battle and he confronts us physically. It's not a fair fight. Guess what? War is not fair. How do you kill somebody nicely? That's, what is it? That sounds like Judas Iscariot, all concerned about how they're going to capture Jesus in the garden. Yeah. Oh, he knows the end is to kill him. So what do you care how they do it? You know, torture somebody nicely? Verse 14. But put ye on, there's that armor again, the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. Okay, let's find some strife in the Bible. That way we don't have to find it in our life. Genesis chapter 13. Get two examples and then we'll move on to the principles. Abraham and Lot, of course, is our first instance of strife. Genesis 13, verse 2. Genesis 13, 2. And Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. I'm not Abraham, that's for sure. But you know what? Abraham went through some hard things. He got up and left everything he knew. He carried his nephew with him and all of his junk and put up with it. And God had blessed him heavily. You know what happens? Strife seems to always follow blessing. The more you're blessed, it seems like the more susceptible you are to fall into the trap of strife. Because you suddenly start thinking, I'm worth this. No, you're not. You just got a gift. It wasn't something you earned. None of us deserve any of the junk we got. God's just been good to us. Look at verse 5, Genesis 13, 5. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. A little different than silver and gold, and but he had been blessed too. Not to the same degree, but he had been blessed. Verse 6. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. For their substance was great. Okay, there's the blessing. So that they could not dwell together. Okay, you know what happens? Verse 7, here comes strife. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt in the land. Drop down to verse 8 and let's find the answer for the situation. Abraham says, verse 8, and Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife between me and thee. Okay, how is there going to be no strife? We got too much junk. You know, we're in a tiny little, in the men's Sunday school room. And we got a bunch of junk. Tiny little space and not enough room for it. Well, you know that they're going to be pulling their hair out trying to everybody get their own, what belongs to them. He says, we'll fix it. Verse 9. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself. Ooh. End of the verse. If thou depart to the right hand, then I'll go to the left. Okay, the answer to strife many times is this. Separate. Depart. If both parties can't come to a amenable conclusion, one of you had better get gone. Okay? Or you just got a war. Decide what you want. Let's find this happen again. One more example and then we'll get on to preaching. Genesis chapter 26. This is Isaac and the herdmen of Gerar. Genesis 26 verse 20.
Herds again.
Yeah, same thing. Herds. That you were blessed if you had a good farm, a bunch of farm animals. Genesis 26 verse 20. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esca, because they strove with him. There was some fighting going on. Well, you know what the conclusion to our last story was? It was this. If you've got strife, one of the quickest ways to solve it is depart. And that's what he does. Verse 22. And he removed from thence and digged another well. And for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. So what happens next? Once he's departed, and they're not close to each other and fighting over the same junk, verse 26, they can be friends. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzath, that guy, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain of his army. And Isaac said unto them, wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me? Seeing ye hate me. What? I thought we were all being cordial and getting along. Okay, strife, just because we're trying to avoid strife does not mean that we avoid truth. Okay. He's already done everything that he knows within his power to rectify the situation. He's moved. Okay, now he confronts facts. Facts did not change even though his location changed. He says this, hey, obviously we're not on the same page. I left so you could have all the work I did. Now why are you here? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, get the facts out. Just because we want to get along with somebody doesn't mean that we want to ignore truth. We don't. It's got to come out. Okay, so where'd we stop? Seeing that you hate me. Where is that? Okay. And have sent me away from you. And they said, we saw certainly that the Lord was with thee. And we said, I want in on that. Let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee. So they said, we see that, you're the one that's blessed, not us. We got to steal some of your junk, and we appreciate that. But we want to be on good terms because God's blessing you, and I don't want him cursing me. Okay, so verse 30. He's nice. You know, I don't think I'd have been this nice. He's just confronted the issue, laid the cards out on the table, said, look, you hate me. I dug a well and you made me leave it. Now I've left it in your hands. You've got the well. I just found me a new well, and now all of a sudden you showed up at my door front. You know, I didn't invite you. I didn't say that we're having a neighborhood picnic or something. Why are you here? And so they get that sorted out. And then, I would not have been this nice. Look at verse 30. And he made them a feast. And they did eat and drink. He said, come on in now that we got that handled. It's out of mind. Verse 31. And they rose up betimes in the morning. That means many times. And swore one to another, not at each other. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. Okay, that problem was solved. Okay, the common denominator between the two stories was somebody had to depart. They had to leave. But the other thing that we saw that's very interesting is the facts have to come forth. You've got to present truth. And the proper conclusion is when you're all done, be friends. Now, they could be friends because they weren't squatting in the same spot. That helped. Sometimes you need a little distance, a little space from somebody else, and that'll solve the strife. Look at the first thing I'll see is criminal behavior. That's what strife leads to. In the Bible, we know as a Christian, we should forbid this strife amongst ourselves, if we can. Proverbs 3, look at verse 30. Proverbs 3, verse 30. Strive not with a man, without cause,
Amen.
if he have done thee no harm. Now, I know that this is going to be spiritualized in the age we live in. Harm. It means physical harm. It doesn't mean you were stressed out. It doesn't mean you had mental anguish. It means physical harm. Now, our day and age has become so effeminate. Now, a woman should be feminine, but I mean males that should not be. In our day and age, everybody's become so sensitive that they'll take anything they can and stretch it as far as they can. For instance, harm here, you would understand, if you read your Old Testament, you will understand harm meant harm. It didn't mean somebody speaking mean to you. It meant harm. They do the same thing in the New Testament. If they want to get a divorce, they'll say, this person committed adultery with me in their mind. Okay, the Bible doesn't say anything about in your mind. It's a physical act. Okay, so interpret the Bible just the way it's meant. Here he's saying, there's no need for strife if no physical harm has come to you. Okay, so maybe that's something we should learn. In our day-to-day situations, when we want to get mad at the other person because we feel like we've been done wrong, was there a physical harm? I'm not talking mental. You can go talk to the psychiatrist about that. Book you a double session. I don't care. I'm talking about physical. Was there any physical harm? Okay, then you're better off than you should be. Proverbs 25. Proverbs 25, verse 8. Proverbs 25, verse 8. Here's the part man doesn't think about when we get this idea that we can handle the situation by asserting our power. Proverbs 25, verse 8. Go not forth hastily to strive. You can see somebody packing up their duds and running over there, and they're going to solve the situation. He's running. He's hastily. How do we say that? He's going forth hastily. Lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame. Okay, strife does this. It causes you to think me first and not all the details. Okay, he says this man is in a hurry to go start a fight, yet he's not thought through what's the response going to be. Okay, so strife blinds your mind. You can't reason. We'll see that a little more in a later point. The thing about strife, the Bible tells us it's carnal. It's fleshly. It's a work of the flesh. Look at it in Galatians 5. Galatians 5 verse 19. He says, now the works of the flesh are manifest. I like this passage. In Galatians, he's going to tell you, previous to this, he told you the fruit of the Spirit is, okay, and fruit, you know, if you ever tried to grow a fruit tree, it doesn't happen overnight. And you got to watch the frost, and you got to fertilize it and prune it, and all those things that you got to do to a fruit tree. It takes a while to get any fruit off of it. Okay, that's going to be us. The fruit of the Spirit takes some time. It doesn't happen immediately. However, the imitation of it that the devil will offer you is this. Now the works of the flesh are manifest. Those you can come up with immediately. Works of the flesh. He says the works of the flesh are manifest. Drop down to verse 20. Idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife. That's our subject. Sedition and heresies. Strife. It's a work of the flesh. It's one of those things we know the devil's going to offer us. It's on the list. Look at it in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 3. For ye are yet carnal. Way to soft pedal it there. For whereas there is among you envying and strife. There it is. Strife has just told off on you. Means you're carnal. And divisions. Are you not carnal and walk as women? No, men. I know it. I'm outnumbered. That's right. No, I'm not outnumbered today. How about that? It's equal. This is unusual. That's right. Okay, so there we see it's carnal. It's something that the flesh just does. Now, these works of the flesh, because they appear immediately, have to be put down immediately. Amen. They can't be given space. You can't give it time and let it go away on its own. It doesn't. It multiplies on its own. The next thing we'll see about it is it's unreasonable. You can't reason with it. When I think the phrase unreasonable, there's one story in the Old Testament that shows you an unreasonable person. It's Abigail and Nabal. He couldn't be reasoned with, and God hardened his heart and killed him. Sometimes you'll work for somebody like this that is unreasonable. You can't reason with them, and they fly off at the handle. That's strife. Strife is that rage that builds in you. And if we don't watch it, we've already seen the devil's got that as one of his tools that he uses. And he'll give it to us. It's the Christian who'll be tempted to use it. Proverbs chapter 10. Proverbs 10 verse 12. Proverbs 10 verse 12. This will become very convicting. I know none of us in here have ever had any strife, but you'll see other people who have it. He says, hatred stirreth up strifes, but love covereth all sins. So, if you're given to strife, you got a problem with hatred. We don't think of ourselves that way. But that's the fact. We're uncovering the details of this. The details are, you got a problem with hatred, if you're given to strife. Look at it in chapter 18, verse 6. Proverbs 18, verse 6. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes. Wow. He says, the problem is your lips. And isn't that, as a Christian, we don't have the right to speak until God tells us we can speak and tells us what to speak. And, we think that we have a mouth, therefore we're supposed to use it. God says, no, your brain is much bigger than your mouth. You're supposed to use that one first. It's hard to get that order correct. Proverbs 28, verse 25. It says, he that is of a proud heart stirreth up strife. There it is again. There's a direct correlation between strife and pride. Pride is basically an overestimation of your self-worth. He says, a proud man does this. He thinks it's his job to stir up strife. Start it somewhere. Leave that party and go start it somewhere else. But he that putteth his trust in the Lord shall be made fat. Preach on that. So the opposite of stirring up strife is this. Here's the way you defeat it. You defeat pride and strife this way, putting your trust in the Lord. Now we can count on Him. I can't even count on my reasoning ability. I can't count on everybody else to do me right. I can't count on me to understand what that is. But we know God. We can trust in Him. We can count on Him. And He's going to do right. Look at it in chapter 15, Proverbs 15, verse 18. It says, a wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife. So if you're tempted to get angry, you know what the Bible has to say about anger. Nothing good. If you're tempted to get angry, you know that that's going to escalate into strife. One way to appease it is this: be slow to get angry. The colloquial for that is slow your roll. Take your time, slow down. Don't let your mouth run away before your mind can catch it. Proverbs 30, verse 33. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter. You better believe it. Now, we don't know anything about that nowadays because we don't do it. But that's the way you would make butter. Now, Jan probably knows about it. That's how they made it when she was a kid. Right. And I guess that's where you get heavy whipping cream from and all that stuff. Well, I don't know anything about how you do all that. I've heard it. He says here, surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter. Now, so you have milk. You could either drink the milk right away, or you could do something to produce something else. And that's what he's going to talk about. An action that produces something else. You stir that milk, and finally it produces the butter. Okay? Keep reading. And the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. Okay, you've got to be wringing on that nose for a little while, and forcefully, for it to begin bleeding. But eventually that's what will happen. Your blood vessels are near the surface in your nose. So, all of that was said to get us to this point right here. So the forcing of wrath bringeth forth strife. Pushing an issue. Keep pushing it and pushing it. When it does not need to be pushed, is going to bring forth strife. That's just a fact. The next thing we'll see about this strife issue is it's predictable. Proverbs chapter 16. You leave the cookies on the counter, just count on it. The little kid's going to find it. You could hide the cookies and a little kid in the house will find it. If they're a boy, we just have noses for it. That's the sixth sense God gave us. We know where the Krispy Kreme donuts are, and we know where the cookies are.
They can climb too.
Yes, we'll find a way to get to it. Proverbs 16, verse 28. A froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. So one thing about strife that's no good is it breaks up buddies. He said a froward man. What's a froward man? Someone without faith. Children in whom is no faith. Okay, so a froward man does this. It's like he's planting a garden. He sows strife. How do you plant a garden? You sow it, you plow the field, you put in the seed. Wicked people do this, and non-wicked people, because I'm talking about us too, do this. We have a great mind for our own means. So you know what a person that this verse is about will do? They'll engineer things in order to sow strife, in order to prove their point. They'll begin engineering things and coming up with a way to, eventually this is going to come out. When this field comes to fruition, it'll show I was right. That's sowing strife, planting it, producing your own crop. Proverbs 17, verse 19. Proverbs 17, verse 19. We tell off on our own self. The actions we take are revealing the heart we have. There's no way around that. He says, he loveth transgression that loveth strife. A person who loves to be in the middle of a big argument and causing them and always in strife and issues and won't separate themselves from it. He says right there, that person loves transgression. That is, they're a transgressor. They don't like God. They love sin. He says, and he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction. That doesn't mean your chain link fence. Your gate. That means exactly what they have promoted nonstop since I was a child, is the runway. When a woman walks on a runway, I don't understand why they do that. They don't walk normal. It doesn't make any sense. How would that show off the garment? Because you're not walking like normal people walk. Let me see how a normal person walks and see if I like the garment. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's exalting his gait. And you see people prance around and, puff out their chest. And that's an exhibition of pride. That's exalting your gait. Okay, now, this strife thing is avoidable. We know that. The main way to avoid it is to submit rather than to engage. Now, it did not happen, but, Lot could have tried to fight the thing a little bit. I think Lot was kind of enjoying the fact that there was a strife because he was going to have a good reason to leave. He could have said, hey, Abraham, I really don't want to leave. Let's see if we can find a way to work this out. But he didn't. He said, hey, that sounds like a good idea, and I get the first pick. I've been thinking this through already. There's a spot down there I want to go check out. And off he went. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 7. This is a little known principle in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 7. Now, therefore, there is utterly a fault among you. Okay, so we need to know what this is because Paul's identified a fault. Because you go to law one with another. Why do you not rather take wrong? He said we're supposed to take wrong. Why do you not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? You can be done wrong. Remember the verse we started with? We're supposed to be able to handle things the way that Jesus Christ suffered in the flesh. Whew. That means we'll be done wrong. He was done wrong. Be prepared for it. There's hope in all of this, because it doesn't sound like there is so far. But there is hope in all of this. Back to Genesis 18. Genesis 18, look at verse 25. This is Abraham. And he's going to tell us something. They're talking about a conversation. I'm not going to get into the details of the conversation. I'm just going to notice a fact that he lays out here. Genesis 18, verse 25. That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Now here's our fact. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Now there's our hope. The fact of the matter is, I'm not the judge of all the earth. I'm not even the judge of me. And neither are you. But God is. So when you've been done wrong, it will happen. Turn it over to the judge. The true judge of every single person that moves on this earth is God. And he will do right.
Amen.
You don't have to defend yourself. Let God do it. But if you want to, he'll just hands off and let you go try it. That doesn't usually work out too well. Psalm 35 verse 1. Here's the way you do it. David did it this way. And this is the way that you turn your situation over to God. Psalm chapter 35 verse 1. He's David speaking here. He said, plead my cause, O Lord. That is, he's the judge. He can handle it. With them that strive, there's our word, with me. Fight against them that fight against me. David is a warrior. For him to say, I'm going to turn the fighting over to somebody else, that took some willpower. You read this Old Testament, you get the idea they just enjoyed fighting. So, I mean, knowing that, and really it's a rough time back then, you had better be able to fight to defend what you got or you won't have it. And so they were a rough crowd. Here he's saying, I'm going to leave the fighting to you. Now, that's what we've got to determine in our own self. When the strife shows up and there's no way to handle it, then you just turn it over to God. God, I'm going to leave this one to you. I've been done wrong. I know it. You know it. Idiot over there doesn't know it. God, you handle it. Just leave it with him. 2 Thessalonians 1. 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 7, and we'll be done. 2 Thessalonians 1 7. He says, and to you who are troubled, rest with us, when the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels, in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. You can turn it over to God and trust that the judge of all the earth is going to do right, and you will be vindicated. It may not be in your lifetime, but you're going to live much longer than this earthly lifetime. And the vindication will come. He says right there, if you've been done wrong, if you're troubled right now, you can trust in God and put up with the mess down here. Remember, Christ put up with a bunch of stuff he shouldn't have? Okay, we can too. And know the fact is this, one day it's all going to be rectified. The one you're trusting in is coming back in flaming fire, taking vengeance. It's going to be rectified. Okay, strife. We don't want it in our life.